Tonight, the bomb squad is called in after a passenger tries to blow up a Delta Northwest jet on approach to Detroit. This evening, the president has ordered stepped-up security for all the nation's air travel. I'm Jeff Glore, also stranded by the storm.
I'm stuck in a snowdrift.
Record snowfalls close highways and cancel flights as that massive winter storm pounds the nation's midsection. Protecting the Pope, the Vatican rethinks security after Benedict was attacked at midnight mass for the second year in a row by the same person.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening. Katie's off tonight. Authorities say he had an explosive and tried to blow up a plane, but he failed. High drama that played out today inside a Delta Northwest jetliner. Flight 253 from Amsterdam was approaching Detroit when the passenger allegedly ignited some sort of powder. There was an immediate commotion and the man was quickly subdued. As you can imagine, authorities are taking this very seriously tonight. The White House says the president has, quote, instructed that all appropriate measures be taken to increase security for air travel. The Department of Homeland Security says passengers can expect additional screenings on all flights for the time being. Jim Axelrod is following this story tonight. Jim, what do we know?
Well, Jeff, this investigation is still very much in its early stages. There are conflicting reports as to whether the suspect acted alone. Here's what we know at this point. A 23-year-old Nigerian man named Umar Farouk Abdul Muttaleb tried to ignite a powdery substance as the plane made its final approach to the Detroit airport. Now, Abdul Muttaleb has made claims that he is connected to al-Qaeda terrorists. Sources tell CBS News he was on a government watch list of people with terrorist ties, but cannot corroborate an al-Qaeda connection. After Delta Northwest Flight 253 landed in Detroit, the plane was moved to a remote part of the airport. Authorities were concerned enough to try to send in a bomb-disabling robot to investigate.
We heard a loud pop, then a bit of a smoke, and then some flames, then yelling and screaming.
There was a fire in the plane after a few seconds. It was very scary for everyone.
The Airbus 330 was carrying 278 passengers. The suspect was subdued and detained aboard the flight and is now being questioned by the FBI. The most important question at this point, how exactly was someone able to get an explosive on board the plane in the first place?
Back check on board!
The amount of explosive might not have been enough to be detected by normal screening procedures. It's unclear if Dutch authorities had selected the man for additional screening.
I think we got to find out what kind of fireworks were in play and then go back and take a look and see whether procedures were followed, whether something was overlooked that allowed these materials to get through. How do you tighten up the procedure? And then you really got to prosecute the person who brought them on board to the full extent of the law.
What's also unclear is how the explosives were lit. After the notorious shoe bomber Richard Reid tried to blow up a Paris to Miami flight in 2001.
We must confiscate your lighter.
Congress banned lighters from planes. That ban had just been lifted this past August 4th. Abdul Muttaleb was restrained and stripped before landing. 3 people were burned during this incident. That includes the suspect, who reportedly was burned severely. Jeff?
All right, Jim Axelrod tonight. Jim, thank you. Joining us now on the phone is our Justice correspondent, Bob Orr. Bob, what have you heard about this guy tonight?
Jeff, FBI investigators are still trying to figure out exactly how connected this suspect is, if he's connected at all. He has told investigators that he had instructions from terrorists and connections to terrorists who wanted him to procure explosives from Yemen and then blow up an American-bound plane. What we do know is as the plane was on final approach to Detroit, he apparently tried to light some kind of substance taped to his lower leg. Caused some kind of flash fire. 3 people, including the suspect, were hurt. His burns are somewhat severe. Now the question is, was this man a lone actor? The preliminary indication is maybe he was. But, of course, the FBI cannot take anything for granted, and they're looking now to see if he is further connected to al-Qaeda or some other network.
Yeah, so, Bob, you talk about those connections. He is claiming those connections, at least. Do we have any indication, further indication from officials there may be that al-Qaeda connection?
Well, there is a reason to be suspicious because we now know that this man's name was on a so-called federal terror watch list or a no-fly list, which raises all kinds of questions. Why was he on the plane in the first place? And when that manifest was turned over to U.S. authorities, why wasn't it discovered that he was on the plane? But it seems that his connections go back to Yemen. Of course, there is an al-Qaeda branch there, too. But we just simply do not know yet whether this is a lone actor who was just inspired to do something, maybe from the Internet, or someone who really was carrying out some kind of plot. I will tell you this. One high-ranking official said to me that if you look at all of the elements here, this did not have the earmarks of a sophisticated and well-planned attack. That might be a clue he acted alone.
And I think that's a very important point to make tonight. Bob, the president says they're increasing security for all airline flights here. What does that mean?
Well, first of all, please understand the security for aviation is very high. It's been at orange since 2006. There's an erroneous report out there that the level has been lifted to orange. It's already at orange. But what this will mean, undoubtedly, is that more and more people will be checked for explosive residue. When you go through the airport and they swab your bag and they check for traces of explosives, that happens once in a while. I think it's a sure bet now that more and more people will have that check done, which will slow down the lines, and it will be a much more deliberate process.
All right, Bob Orr, our Justice correspondent, joining us on the phone tonight. Bob, some helpful information. Thank you very much. We're going to turn now to Chip Reid, our chief White House correspondent. He is traveling with the president in Honolulu, Hawaii. Chip?
Well, Jeff, I was just told by a senior administration official that the White House is calling this an attempted terrorist attack. And here's a bit of a tick-tock on what happened with the president. At about 9 a.m. Hawaii time, which was about a half an hour after the incident happened, the president was notified by his military aide, who, of course, is always nearby the president, no matter where he is. The president then had a telephone call quickly and arranged a secure conference call with top national security officials. And in that call, the president ordered, quote, all appropriate measures be taken to increase security for air travel, exactly the kind of thing that Bob Orr was just talking about. You know, even on Christmas Day in Hawaii, the president is never really entirely on vacation. Jeff?
All right, Chip Reid tonight in Honolulu, Hawaii. Chip, thank you very much. And we should mention, of course, stay with CBS News for the latest on that story. We move now to that massive storm that has been dumping snow and freezing rain on the nation's midsection for days now. It's left thousands of holiday travelers stranded. At least 19 people have been killed on icy roads this week. Interstate highways and airports have been closed in 4 states due to whiteout conditions. And new records for snowfall are being set in Oklahoma and Texas. Tonight, that storm is moving east, but it's moving very slowly. Iowa and the Dakotas are getting hit hard, Minnesota as well. Barry Peterson is at the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport this evening. Barry?
Well, Jeff, this storm is so slow-moving that a meteorologist here in Minneapolis-St. Paul said it's like the uncle who came for the holidays and won't go home. And across America's midsection, it took lives and ruined many a Christmas. It whipped fast and furious across Oklahoma, so fast that several motorists on Interstate 40 were first stalled, then snowed in for up to 15 hours. So bad, even snowplows were sent slipping and sliding out of commission. In Iowa Park, Texas, Jonah Kaplan of CBS affiliate KAUZ was stranded, along with hundreds of other motorists on U.S. Highway 287.
They ran out of gas. They had no food, they had no water, and, you know, we're not prepared for anything like this because we've never had anything like this.
For Jane Legree, driving with her 95-year-old mother, it was a 3-hour nightmare that kept getting worse.
We got stuck in a snowdrift during one of the whiteouts, got hit by a snow plow, and so we got stuck in another snowdrift.
Some states shut down highways altogether. In South Dakota, they closed Interstate 29, the state's main north-south artery, and Interstate 80 in Nebraska was closed for 80-plus miles. In Oklahoma City, they rewrote the record books after this one. The city digging out of 14.1 inches of snow, the most ever in a single day. Dallas got a Christmas present Texas rarely expect, what locals said was the first real white Christmas since 1926. For the unlucky still gamely trying to get home for Christmas through a mass of airport delays and cancellations, it will get better, sort of.
People may be able to get home. The problem is the winds will continue to whip in northern Minnesota and the Dakotas, blowing around the snow that's already on the ground.
Across the hard-hit region, This was the sound more popular than a Christmas carol. In Minneapolis, the city said it would plow enough lanes on streets and multi-lane highways to equal 3,200 miles, enough to equal plowing a single lane from the Twin Cities to Anchorage, Alaska.
Too much of it, that's what we've got too much of today.
But there were some who welcomed every flake that fell, and for that, it helped to be a kid. You know, everybody else is shoveling snow and miserable. How about you guys?
No, not great. Yeah.
You're great.
Yeah.
On Girard Avenue in Minneapolis, adversity was trumped by neighborly Christmas spirit. Roger Day was helping a friend because that's how it's done here.
You help your neighbors because, you know, in a few hours of the next day, you're going to find yourself in the same fix. So you help them, they help you.
There's plenty of trial and trouble with a storm like this, but people can be resilient and even display a little bit of gallows humor. We saw a sign today that says, "Smile, only 120 days left until spring." Jeff?
Keeping everything in perspective. All right, Barry Peterson in Minneapolis tonight. Barry, thank you. In Afghanistan today, the Taliban released a video showing an American soldier who was captured after he went missing last June. There's no telling when or where it was made, but it did give the captive soldier's Idaho family some hope. Kimberly Dozier has the story.
My name is Bo Bergdahl.
In the video released today by the Taliban, U.S. Army Private First Class Bo Bergdahl appears to be healthy and lucid.
I was continuously treated as a human being of dignity.
Dressed first in fatigues and then shown briefly in local clothing, the 23-year-old tells a questioner he's not been mistreated.
No, they've never deprived me of food or water. They've always made sure I've had plenty of it.
In Blaine County, Idaho, a friend read his family's plea to his captors to release him.
To Bo, we love you and we believe in you. Stay strong.
U.S. military officials publicly condemned the slickly produced video as propaganda. U.S. officials tell CBS News they believe he's being held by the Taliban's Haqqani tribe, and they say they've been stepping up attacks against the Haqqanis, whose territory extends from Afghanistan into Pakistan. 3 senior officers tell CBS News since February, top U.S. Commander General Stanley McChrystal has sent in an extra 1,000 special operating forces hitting the Taliban across Afghanistan. Another 500 counter-terrorist specialists like Delta Force are headed to Afghanistan in the spring, and the surge doesn't stop there. A U.S. official tells CBS News the Pakistani government has given the U.S. permission to pursue the Haqqani network on Pakistani soil. Kimberly Dozier, CBS News, Washington.
This is the 9th Christmas that American troops have spent in Afghanistan, and it goes without saying what a difficult time it can be for them and their families. Helping them through it are counselors who've experienced trauma themselves at Fort Hood in Texas. Mandy Clark met one at Camp Leatherneck in Helmand Province.
Merry Christmas, how are y'all doing this morning, dispatch?
The Marines at Camp Leatherneck are doing their very best to make Christmas feel like a holiday.
Merry Christmas to you and your families. Make sure you call home today.
Most of them have done this before, but it seems to get tougher every year.
This is my 3rd deployment in a row, my 3rd Christmas in a row, and it doesn't get any easier.
Or any more like home.
It becomes a very sad and lonely time for many soldiers. And it's like Groundhog Day. Every day is the same, so you may not even notice that it's Christmas.
Colonel Kathy Platoni is a field psychologist, but she likes to call herself a warrior therapist. She doesn't give up easily. In November, a member of her unit, Major Nadal Hassan, went on a rampage in their base in Fort Hood, killing 12 of her comrades and injuring 31 others.
He targeted our units because he didn't want us to go on the mission.
But a month after the attack, she was deployed to Afghanistan anyway. She wears the names of each of her fallen friends around her wrist.
Sometimes I push it up my sleeve because it's such a painful reminder.
Soldiers like Maria Darman say Platoni's loss makes her better at her job.
Coming from where she's coming, she can totally relate to the horrors of what some of the people on this side are seeing.
You must have a Christmas stocking.
A Christmas stocking? Oh my gosh.
Take credit for that, but no.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
There you go.
With so many dead and injured in Fort Hood and the relentless combat here, Colonel Petroni says this Christmas will be harder than most.
It's been an incredible experience to overcome all of the challenges and obstacles and hardships that we had to in order to get here, but this is our finest hour. We did it. We went forward, and we're here, and we're going to do a world-class job of it for our fallen.
And for these Marines who've just arrived as part of the troop surge, that commitment can only be described as a gift. Mandy Clark, CBS News, Camp Leatherneck, Afghanistan.
Next up on the CBS Evening News, a Christmas Eve attack on the Pope raises troubling questions for Vatican security. Pope Benedict delivered his traditional Christmas greeting in St. Peter's Square today, but he made no mention of what happened at last night's Christmas Eve Mass when a woman rushed him and somehow was able to knock him down. The Vatican says it will review its security procedures. Alan Pizzi has more tonight from Vatican City.
Vatican officials say the lunge over the barrier in the middle of St. Peter's Basilica was more like an attempt to reach Pope Benedict XVI than to harm him. But it did serve to highlight just how vulnerable the Pope is and how hard it is to protect him no matter how fast his security agents react.
All of a sudden, this person sort of flew over the barricade, and the Holy Father went down, and all of a sudden, all the security people were all on top of it, you know, the whole pile there, getting her off and pulling him back up.
The woman, a 25-year-old Swiss-Italian named as Susanna Maiolo, whom Vatican officials described as mentally unstable, tried the same stunt last year but was restrained by security guards. The Pope shrugged off the incident last night
Feliz Navidad.
And showed no ill effects at today's Christmas greeting, an attitude reflected by his spokesman.
You cannot have a total security or a risk zero.
For centuries, popes have been protected by the Swiss guards, whose colorful dress and medieval ceremonial weapons disguise the fact that they are trained soldiers. They are augmented by the Vatican Gendarmerie, a police force that includes a plainclothes close protection detail. Security was stepped up after a gunman shot Pope John Paul II in St. Peter's Square in 1981. The papal spokesman reluctantly admitted the bodyguards carry arms, but not at ceremonies inside the basilica. That may have as much to do with Benedict as with religious sensitivities.
The Pope is always trying to get less security, less bulletproof glass, less things between him and his people. He's, after all, a pastor. He's a shepherd. He's not trying to be up in some ivory tower. He's trying to be close to his people.
Because the Pope cannot be isolated from the faithful, he will always be within range of the unfaithful and the disturbed, which leaves divine protection his last, and he might say best, resort. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, Vatican City.
Well, Christmas was celebrated all over the world today. Worshippers attended Mass at Chicago's 134-year-old Holy Name Cathedral. In Bethlehem, pilgrims and Palestinian Christians celebrated at the Church of the Nativity. And Australians were on Sydney's famed Bondi Beach with not a snowflake in sight. It is summer there, after all. It looks like 5 American men arrested in Pakistan will not be coming home anytime soon. Pakistani police said today they plan to pursue terrorism charges against them. The 5 are Muslims from the Washington, D.C. area. Earlier this month, they were picked up in central Pakistan after allegedly trying to contact al-Qaeda. This week, Yemen's military attacked suspected al-Qaeda hideouts in that country, and officials say a U.S.-born Muslim cleric who was linked to the Fort Hood shooting suspect may have been killed in one of the airstrikes. However, relatives say he was not harmed. Anwar al-Awlaki moved to Yemen in 2002 and reportedly had email contacts with Major Nidal Hassan. Officials say at least 30 militants were killed in yesterday's strike in Shabwa province. It was the second carried out with U.S. help in a week. We have an update tonight on Tuesday's runway crash in Jamaica. It turns out that approach lights that help guide pilots to the runway aren't working and haven't been for weeks. It is unclear if that played a role in that incident, though. American Airlines Flight 331 ran off the tarmac and broke apart on the beach. All 154 people on board survived. When we come back here tonight, an update on our top story, that attempt to blow up a U.S. jetliner. Updating tonight's top story now, what the White House is calling an attempted act of terrorism. Authorities say a passenger tried to blow up a Delta Northwest jetliner today as it approached Detroit. Flight 253 from Amsterdam landed safely, and the bomb squad was called in. Authorities say the suspect ignited a powdery substance inside the cabin. He was immediately subdued, and he was taken into custody. But tonight, the president has ordered security tightened for all flights in the U.S. Our Justice correspondent Bob Orr is back with us on the phone now. Bob, what can you tell us?
Well, Jeff, the FBI is still working at this hour to determine if the suspect acted alone or perhaps at the behest of terrorists. The young man, a Nigerian national named Abdul Madalib, has told investigators that he does have links to al-Qaeda, and they instructed him to get explosives in Yemen and then blow up an American-bound jetliner. Now, so far, it's important to note the FBI has not confirmed that he has any hard terror connections, but we should say he was on a U.S. government terror watch list. The suspect's been severely burned after he attempted to light a powdery substance taped to his leg, but no other explosive devices were found on the plane. Also, sources say the attempted bombing did not have the, quote, earmarks of a sophisticated and well-planned attack, but the question is raised, how did he get explosives on the plane? Now security is being tightened at all U.S. airports. That means you can expect, if you go to the airport, to be screened for traces of explosives. Jeff?
All right, very good questions tonight. Bob Orr joining us on the phone. Bob, thank you very much. For the latest updates, you can go to cbsnews.com, and then tomorrow morning on the Saturday Early Show. That is the CBS Evening News tonight. For Katie Couric, I'm Jeff Glor. Thanks for watching. I'll see you back here tomorrow night as well. Good night.